The Miller family reunion was held at the same lakeside park it had been for the past 20 years. Picnic tables covered in red checkered cloths, a buffet line stretching 20 feet, kids running around with water balloons, adults catching up on a year's worth of news. 75 relatives had shown up, 3 generations strong. My younger brother, Tyler, had been the center of attention since he arrived, showing off his new BMW to anyone who would look. He'd parked it prominently near the entrance, metallic blue gleaming in the afternoon sun. It's the 5 Series, he was explaining to a cluster of uncles. Fully loaded, the lease is $850 a month, but with my new sales director position, I can swing it. Gotta look successful to be successful, right? Mom beamed at him from the dessert table. Tyler's doing so well at the pharmaceutical company. His territory covers 3 states now. Sales director at 29, Dad added proudly. That's real career advancement. I stood in the buffet line, loading my plate with potato salad and grilled chicken, half listening to Tyler's performance. This was standard family reunion fare. Tyler showcasing whatever new thing proved his success, my parents glowing with pride, me fading into the background as the older sister who'd made unconventional choices. Aunt Carol joined me in line, filling her plate with coleslaw. Aunt Carol was Dad's younger sister, a management consultant who traveled constantly for work. We'd stayed in touch over the years, bonding over our shared understanding of the consulting world. "Victoria," she smiled warmly, "I haven't seen you since last summer. How's that $890,000 consulting contract working out? You must be in the final stages by now." The chatter around us stopped. Tyler's voice cut off mid-sentence about his BMW's horsepower. My parents' heads swiveled from the dessert table, their faces frozen in confusion. Uncle Mike dropped his fork. "What contract?" Dad called out, his voice sharp. I set my plate carefully on the edge of the buffet table. "The contract's going well, Aunt Carol. We're about 3 months from completion. The client's happy with the deliverables so far." Aunt Carol continued, completely oblivious to the stunned silence spreading through the reunion. "And they're still interested in extending for another year. That would bring the total to what? $1.2 million? $13 million if they exercise the extension option. Yes." Mom had walked over, her paper plate trembling slightly. "Victoria, what is Carol talking about?" Aunt Carol finally registered the shocked faces around her. She looked from me to my parents, confusion dawning. "Oh, they don't know about the Meridian contract?" "We haven't discussed work in detail," I said evenly. Dad's voice was strained. "What Meridian contract?" I took a breath. "I have a consulting contract with Meridian Technologies, 2-year engagement, $890,000 total compensation, plus expenses." The family reunion had gone completely silent. Even the kids seemed to sense something important was happening, their water balloon fight pausing. Tyler found his voice first. "That's impossible. You're a freelance consultant working from home. You make like $50 an hour doing PowerPoint presentations." "I'm an independent strategy consultant specializing in digital transformation for Fortune 500 companies. My standard rate is $350 per hour, but the Meridian contract is a fixed price engagement based on deliverables, not hourly billing." Mom's hand flew to her chest. $890,000 for 2 years? $445,000 annually. Yes. Though after business expenses, taxes, and retirement contributions, my actual take-home is lower. Aunt Carol was shaking her head, understanding what had happened. "You didn't tell them about landing Meridian, Victoria. That was the biggest consulting win of your career. I was so proud when you told me." "When did she tell you?" Dad demanded. 18 months ago, when she signed the contract. We had lunch in Chicago, and she walked me through the whole engagement, scope of work, deliverables, timeline, compensation structure. "I assumed she told you the same week." I kept my voice calm. "I mentioned I had landed a major client. You asked if I was still doing the consulting thing from home." The memory was vivid. 18 months ago, I'd been excited about the Meridian contract, the culmination of 5 years building my consulting practice. I'd called my parents to share the news. Dad had been watching football. Mom had been distracted by something in the kitchen. The conversation lasted maybe 90 seconds before they had to go. Tyler was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're making $445,000 a year?" "This year, yes. Last year was lower, about $280,000. The year before that was $190,000. Income fluctuates based on client engagements." Dad sat down heavily at the nearest picnic table. "How is this possible? You work from home in yoga pants?" "I work from my home office, yes, sometimes in yoga pants, sometimes in business casual for video calls with suite executives. The dress code doesn't affect the value I deliver." Uncle Mike spoke up. "Wait, you said Fortune 500 companies plural. How many clients do you have currently?" "3 active clients. Meridian is the largest engagement. I also have a smaller contract with Patterson Industries worth $120,000 annually and a project-based engagement with Vertex Solutions, generating about $80,000 per year." Aunt Carol nodded. "So your total revenue this year is around $645,000, approximately." "Yes." Mom looks like she might faint. "You're making more than your father? He's been a surgeon for 30 years. "Different field, different compensation structures," I said. "Dad has a stable salary and benefits. I have variable income and no employer-provided benefits. We're not really comparable." Tyler's face had gone from pale to red. "You're making 7 times what I make? You have a company car allowance and benefits package." I pointed out your total compensation is probably closer to $120,000 when you factor everything in. Still, different from my situation, but I'm making $645,000 revenue, not profit. After business expenses, software subscriptions, travel, professional development, liability insurance, health insurance, retirement funding, my actual profit is closer to $480,000. Then taxes take about 35%, leaving me with approximately $310,000 in take-home income. Dad was shaking his head slowly. "Even after all those deductions, you're taking home more than I am." "This year, yes, but you have pension contributions, employer-matched retirement, malpractice insurance covered. Your total compensation package is more stable and predictable than mine." Aunt Carol was watching this unfold with growing discomfort. "I'm sorry, Victoria. I genuinely thought they knew. You've been building this consulting practice for 5 years. I assumed they'd been following your progress." "They knew I was consulting," I said. "They just never asked for details." Mom's voice was small. "You told us you were doing consulting work from home." "Yes, and every time I tried to explain what that meant, the clients, the engagements, the compensation, you changed the subject or made dismissive comments. So I stopped explaining." The family reunion had completely stopped now. 75 relatives were watching this drama unfold like a reality TV show. Some were pretending not to listen while clearly hanging on every word. Others were openly staring. Cousin Jennifer spoke up from a nearby table. "Victoria, I follow you on LinkedIn. I've seen your posts about strategy consulting and digital transformation. I just thought it was, I don't know, aspirational content. I didn't realize those were your actual projects." "They're actual projects for actual Fortune 500 clients," I said. Uncle Mike asked the practical question. "What does a strategy consultant actually do? I've never understood that." For the first time in years, someone was asking a genuine question about my work instead of making assumptions. "I help large companies navigate complex changes," I explained. For Meridian, I'm leading their digital transformation initiative. moving their legacy systems to cloud infrastructure, restructuring their data architecture, and training their teams on new processes. For Patterson, I'm redesigning their supply chain strategy. For Vertex, I'm helping them enter new markets with a go-to-market strategy. That sounds incredibly complex, Aunt Michelle said. It is. That's why companies pay for specialized expertise. They could hire someone full-time, but a 2-year consulting engagement is more cost-effective than a permanent executive salary with benefits. Tyler was still processing, his BMW suddenly seeming less impressive. So, when you said you couldn't afford to go to Vegas for my bachelor party last year, you could afford the $2,000 for flights and hotels? He asked. I chose not to spend $2,000 on a weekend in Vegas when I was in the middle of a critical deliverable for Meridian. It was a priority decision, not a financial constraint. But you let us think you were struggling financially. No, I said firmly. You assumed I was struggling because I live modestly and work from home. I never claimed to be poor. You never asked about my actual financial situation. Dad found his voice. What does your financial situation look like? Mom looked scandalized. It's a fair question, I said. I have approximately $1.1 million in retirement accounts, $340,000 in taxable investment accounts, and $180,000 in cash reserves. My condo is paid off. I bought it for $285,000 6 years ago. It's now worth about $420,000. Total net worth is approximately $2.04 million. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the kids had stopped playing. Tyler sat down next to Dad, looking stunned. You're a millionaire. Multi-millionaire, technically, I said. And I drive a Honda Civic, a 2019 Honda Civic that I bought used for $18,000 and paid off in cash. It's reliable, fuel-efficient, and meets my transportation needs. A luxury car would be a depreciating asset that costs $800 to $1,200 monthly between payments, insurance, and maintenance. Aunt Carol was nodding. Victoria has always been smart about money. When she started her consulting practice 5 years ago, she lived on $40,000 a year and invested everything else. Built a 6-month emergency fund, maxed out retirement contributions, created a stable financial foundation before taking on bigger risks. You knew all this? Mom asked, her voice hurt. Of course I knew. Victoria and I have coffee whenever I'm in town. She updates me on her business, asks advice on contract negotiations, discusses client management strategies. We talk about her career regularly because I ask questions and actually listen to the answers. The implicit criticism hung in the air. Dad was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then he asked, "Why didn't you tell us about the Meridian contract?" I did tell you. 18 months ago, I called and said I'd landed a major Fortune 500 client for a 2-year engagement. You said, "That's nice, honey," and went back to watching football. I stopped trying after that. Mom's eyes were filling with tears. We should have listened. Yes, I agreed, simply. Tyler looked genuinely remorseful. I've been so condescending about your little consulting business from home. I called it a side hustle at Christmas. I remember. I'm sorry. Thank you, I said. Uncle Mike asked, "Are you accepting new clients? My company might need strategy consulting." I almost smiled at the pragmatism. I'm at capacity right now with 3 active clients. I'm selective about engagements because I prefer to deliver exceptional work rather than spread. That means meetings with their CTO, project status updates with their transformation team, and workshops with department heads. Thursday and Friday, I work from home writing deliverables, strategy documents, implementation roadmaps, and training materials. I spend about 50 hours per week on client work, plus another 10 on business development and professional development. That's 60 hours a week, Dad said quietly. Yes, consulting isn't a 40-hour-a-week job, But it's flexible. I control my schedule, choose my clients, set my rates. I don't have a boss except the clients I choose to work with. Tyler asked, "How did you learn to do all this? Strategy, consulting, digital transformation, all of it." 5 years of deliberate skill building. I started with small local clients, charging $75 per hour for basic business strategy work. I invested in certifications, took courses, read extensively, and learned from every project. I gradually moved up market. Larger clients, more complex problems, higher rates. Meridian was the result of 5 years of reputation building and skill development. Aunt Carol added, "And networking. Victoria is brilliant at maintaining professional relationships. She stays in touch with former clients, asks for referrals, and provides value even when she's not working on a paid engagement. That's how you build a consulting practice that generates $645,000 in annual revenue." Dad was staring at his hands. "I told you to get a real job when you started consulting. I said independent consulting was too risky." "You did say that. I was wrong." "Yes, but you couldn't have known the business would succeed. I took a risk. It paid off. If it hadn't, you would have been right to worry." Mom reached across the picnic table toward me. "I'm so sorry we didn't support you. I'm sorry we made assumptions instead of asking questions." "I forgive you," I said, "but I need you to understand something. I didn't hide my success to punish you or prove a point. I just got tired of defending my choices to people who'd already decided I was making mistakes." Tyler was looking at his BMW keys in his hand. "I lease a car for $850 a month to look successful. You actually are successful, and you drive a used Civic." "Different priorities," I said. "You value the status symbol. I value the financial freedom of no car payments. Neither is wrong, they're just different choices. But your choice left you with $2 million in net worth over time." "Yes, but it required living below my means for years, while my peers were buying houses and new cars. It required saying no to expensive vacations and luxury purchases. Most people don't want to make those trade-offs." Aunt Michelle spoke up. "Victoria, when you said you couldn't be in my daughter's wedding party because of work obligations," I had a critical presentation to Meridian's board of directors scheduled the same week. I couldn't reschedule a presentation to a Fortune 500 board for a bridesmaid fitting. It was a genuine conflict, not an excuse. "We thought you were being difficult." I was being professional. My client was paying me $37,000 for that month's work. I couldn't jeopardize that relationship. The reunion slowly started to resume around us. Kids went back to their water balloons. Some relatives drifted back to the buffet. But the energy had fundamentally shifted. People were looking at me differently now. As the afternoon wore on, various family members approached me with questions. Uncle Mike wanted to know about contract negotiation strategies. Cousin Jennifer asked about breaking into consulting. Aunt Michelle apologized for her comments about my career choices over the years. Tyler found me by the dessert table as the reunion was winding down. "Can we talk? Just us?" We walked down to the lake, away from the crowd. "I've been a complete ass to you for years." "Yes, you have. I made fun of your work-from-home consulting thing. I called it a hobby. I implied you weren't contributing to society like people with real jobs. I remember all of it." He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the water. "I make $95,000 a year, and I lease a BMW I can barely afford because I want people to think I'm successful." "You make $645,000 and drive a used Civic because you don't care what people think." "I care what I think," he said. I corrected him. "I just don't need external validation." "Can you teach me, not consulting specifically, but how to build real wealth instead of just looking wealthy?" I studied my brother carefully. "Are you serious, or are you asking because you're embarrassed today?" "Both, but mostly serious. I'm 29 with $8,000 in savings and a car lease I can't really afford. You're 33 with $2 million in assets. I want to understand how you did it. It starts with living below your means, I said. It means driving a used car instead of leasing a status symbol. It means saying no to things your peers say yes to. It's uncomfortable, and it requires discipline most people don't want to maintain. I want to learn. Hey, come over next week. We'll review your finances and create a plan. Driving home that evening, my 2019 Honda Civic running smoothly, I thought about the day's revelations, the shock on their faces when Aunt Carol mentioned the contract, the silence when I explained my actual compensation, the dawning realization that they'd completely misunderstood my life for 5 years. But here's what struck me most. Their knowing changed nothing about what I'd accomplished. The Meridian contract still existed. The deliverables were still being completed on schedule. The $890,000 would still be paid over the 2-year term. My success was real, whether they acknowledged it or not. Their pride was welcome, their apologies were appreciated, their curiosity was validating. But I'd already validated myself every quarter for 5 years. Every time a client renewed a contract, referred me to a colleague, or paid an invoice without hesitation, I'd already won. I'd won the first time a Fortune 500 company trusted me with a 6-figure engagement. I'd won the first time I calculated my effective hourly rate and realized I was earning more than most partners at consulting firms. I'd won the first time I checked my net worth and saw it had crossed 7 figures. Their recognition was just the epilogue to a story I'd already written. I pulled into my condo complex, the building I'd purchased for cash 6 years ago, now completely paid off. Tomorrow, I'd have a video call with Meridian's CTO to review progress on their cloud migration. Next week, I'd finalize a proposal for Patterson Industries' supply chain redesign. Next month, I'd meet with a potential new client interested in my services. My life would continue exactly as it had been, disciplined, strategic, and built on delivering exceptional value to clients who appreciated my expertise. The only difference was that now my family finally understood what Aunt Carol had known all along. I was already successful. I'd been successful for years, and them noticing didn't change that fundamental truth. I'd built something real, something valuable, something that generated significant income while giving me complete control over my time and choices. And I'd done it whether they were watching or